Hello, my name is Alice, and today we're going to do a catch up with me or a update on my life. If you can tell, my hair is kind of short right now. For those of you that know me, we'll get into that. You will find out why pretty soon. I'm going to be putting out a series. It's a little bit about what's been going on in my life. Currently, it is September of 2020. So if you all are in the know right now, or anybody watching this in the future, this is the wonderful year where literally the entire world kind of imploded, exploded, and then imploded, and then exploded again. So we've been dealing with a lot. And more recently for me, I've been dealing with a lot. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start from the beginning. I was born, obviously. When I was about 14, I ended up in the hospital. There was, if I remember correctly, I had passed out. I had fainted at school out of nowhere. Didn't know what was causing it. Didn't know why I had fainted or anything like that. I remember my parents taking me to the doctor, and after a bunch of blood tests and exams and MRIs and a whole slew of stuff, they did find something wrong. So it was probably about 2 weeks from, if I remember correctly, it was probably about 2 weeks from the time that I had passed out at school until the time where they had enough information to kind of sort of tell me what was going on. They had told me that I was having some liver issues. I had actually started to go jaundice a little bit. So like my eye, like the whites of my eyes were a little yellow. My skin was kind of turning yellow and stuff like that. If you don't know what jaundice is, it's basically a condition in your liver that causes like your skin and everything to kind of turn a little bit yellow. It's not good for you, basically. So if you have jaundice, get to the doctor right away. Okay. It does affect your liver, affects your gallbladder and things like that. So it's very, very important to get that checked out by the tests that they saw and stuff like that, or all the exams and tests that they did on me. They did see that there's something wrong. So that's when we started doing like more tests, MRIs. I had a hydro scan, I think it was called, a CT scan, or and then I had just so many tests done, and they basically told me, I was 14 at the time, so I don't remember what like all the medical terms were or anything like that. I mean, even if they did tell me, I probably would not have even understood what it was. But basically I had a cyst in my bile duct, and it was not good for my body. I ended up going into surgery. It was pretty brutal. I ended up going into surgery. They ended up taking out the cyst, which is like a bubble. It's a bubble, like it's a bubble that's grown attached to wherever, but it's a cyst, okay? And as far as I can remember, I believe they said that there was nothing in the cyst. Sometimes there's liquid, sometimes there's, you know, pus or other stuff and stuff like that, but luckily, if I remember correctly, there was nothing in my cyst. It was empty. So they removed the cyst, they removed the bile duct that it was attached to, and they ended up having to remove my gallbladder. In turn, what happened, and I found this out years later, because again, you're 14, you really don't know to ask these things. The doctors really don't know to explain it to you. They probably explained it to my parents, but they didn't explain it to me. But I found out years and years and years later that they had rerouted my small intestine, because they had removed my bile duct and my gallbladder. They had rerouted my small intestine straight into my liver. So and oddly enough, I also found out that that is not an uncommon procedure. Apparently a lot of adults past 40 especially. This is a normal procedure where they have issues, I guess, and they a lot of times will have to have some, you know, work done down there to sort of alleviate whatever their issues are. So attaching your small intestine straight to your liver, I guess, is not a out of the ordinary thing. I believe they call it cholangitis of some sort. So that was a thing. So when I had the surgery, they did reconnect. They did reconnect my small intestine straight into my liver. So it was a really big surgery. I don't know how long it took or anything like that. I was supposed to wait until, so all this happened like, I don't know, before spring break. I remember that. And I remember I was supposed to have the actual surgery in the summer because I was literally going to be cut open and like sewn back together. So that would mean I would miss school and everything. So we sort of thought like, okay, there's no pain right now, so how about we just wait until the summer, and then we can go ahead and do the surgery. You can stay home and recuperate during the summer and stuff like that. And my parents and I were like, okay, sure, that sounds good. And then about a week before, about a week or so before spring break, I remember my jaundice got worse, like all of a sudden got really bad, to the point where even my friends at school and my teachers and stuff like that, they were actually noticing like, wow, you look really yellow today. What's wrong with your, you know, eyes and stuff like that. My biology teacher at the time, my biology teacher at the time was also like, she wasn't very nice. I remember she was just like looking at me and she was like, what's wrong with you, you know? And I was a sophomore in high school. I was 14. So I was just kind of like, how do I explain it to you? Like, you know, I was taking biology, but like, come on, you know, like I don't know how to explain it to you because the doctors haven't explained it to me, like with big words or even small words. They just told me, you have an infection, you have a cyst, and it's and your gallbladder is not happy right now. We need to slice you open and take it out. So that's pretty much all I understood. Probably, shoot, the weekend before my spring break, it was like weird. It was like perfect timing. The weekend before spring break, I was in pain. I was in so much pain. Like my left side was just like, oh my God, I was in so much pain, like center, like right here. I was in so much pain, to the point where my parents ended up having to rush me to the hospital, to the emergency room. We called my doctor, we told the ER, you know, or my parents told the ER room like what was going on, what my medical status was and stuff like that. They called my doctor. I was admitted into the hospital, and then before I knew it, they had said, you know what, we need to operate soon, like ASAP. So my parents were like, do you want to do it as soon as possible? We just need to do it. So I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm in severe pain. So I don't remember what happened or what caused me to go into severe pain like that all of a sudden. We thought we had time. I guess we didn't. From like, you know, we thought we can wait until the summer, but apparently we couldn't. And my body was like, no, spring break is as good as you're gonna get. So I ended up having the surgery during spring break. I was sent home afterwards. I mean, after everything. I mean, I wasn't like same day sent home after my surgery or anything like that. But let's see, yeah, they sent me home, and I was probably on bed rest at home recovering for about a month or so before I was even able to go back to school. So I actually, if I remember correctly, I did try to do some homework. So that was my sophomore year when I was 14. So yeah, That's the first time I had any issues in that liver, gallbladder, bile duct sort of, you know, midsection, like right here area. So what I was left with is a scar from right about here, like right under where like your bra line would hit, right under there, all the way down to just right above my belly button. I have a long scar. So they basically sliced me open, and then afterwards they stapled me shut. So I have like I have like a scar, and then I have like 2 little marks on its side all the way down. So I wasn't stitched up, I was stapled back together. And I remember I had a cough at the time, so at night when I was trying to cough and stuff like that, it was so bad that my mom literally had to hold a pillow over my abdomen area and like push down evenly so I can cough comfortably and not rip open the staples. So that was lots of fun. Yes, up until this day I do have a long scar. So what they ended up happening was they removed my gallbladder, the bile duct that it was attached to, and they removed my cyst. So gallbladder, bile duct, and cyst. 3 things that they removed. They stapled me back together, and so I have a scar now. So I found out maybe like 2 years later, because I still had to go for like checkups and to make sure I was healing okay and everything was kind of, you know, okay in there and stuff like that. So about 1 to 2 years later, my surgeon at the time, he at the time was one of the best liver specialists in the country. I believe now he should be close to retirement or at least probably retired, but as far as I know, a few years ago, last time I heard, he was a professor or something like that, teaching, or he was teaching part-time or something like that at UCLA. So I don't know, but at the time, I guess my case was a very unique situation. They had never seen somebody that young, meaning 14 years old, that had any kind of conditions like that. So it's a unique situation. He ended up telling me that he did write about my situation or my case in some medical journals and stuff like that. I don't know, because at the time I just didn't even think like, oh, can I get, you know, a copy of that or anything like that. So I don't know what medical journal it's in or anything like that. I did find out later on that he had called it cholangitis of some sort. So it was something to do with, you know, in there. So that was my experience, my health, what happened to me when I was 14 years old. Okay, now on to years and years later. We're talking, whoa. So this was in 2014. It was about, I want to say 22 years later. So everything happened. So the first part was when I was 14. 22 years later, yes, do the math, you can probably figure out how old I am. In 2014, I was working at a dental office at the time, and long story short, I was let go. So in 2014, I worked at a dental office, and I had been recently let go. So about, well, a lot happened that year too. But basically, about a week later, after things had kind of settled down from what I was dealing with at the time and stuff like that, it was a Wednesday night, I remember, the very last week of February. It was a Wednesday night. I had suddenly gotten a really sharp pain in my left side, and I was just kind of like, huh, this is weird, maybe a cramp. And you know, I was trying to stretch it out and stuff like that. It started feeling a little better, so I went to bed. Woke up Thursday morning and I was in pain. I had no idea what was going on. So I got up in the morning, grabbed my daughter, took her to school, dropped her off and stuff like that. And when I dropped her off, I basically told her, hey, just an FYI, I really got to go to the emergency room. I don't know what's going on. I'm in a lot of pain, but I'll keep you updated, you know, so keep your phone nearby. So she was like, oh shoot, okay. So I drove myself to the emergency room. I got checked in. They immediately did blood tests and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I was in so much pain. They ended up giving me a bunch of different, like, painkillers. I think they gave me like 2 or 3 different types of painkillers. I remember they were trying to give me morphine, which worked at the beginning, but probably within 24 to 48 hours, morphine was just not working, and they couldn't figure out why. I was just like in severe pain on my left side, to the point where I remember that there was one night where I can't remember, like there's a lot of my mind that I can't, like a lot of that time frame that I can't remember. A lot of that evening that I don't remember. I remember being in a lot of pain. I remember crying. And I remember bits and pieces of like screaming at people and stuff like that. Oh my God, people, like, when you're in pain, it is like, it will make you go nuts. Like, I just remember screaming at people. And they were trying to give me like different types of painkillers after they checked in with the doctor and this, that, and the other and stuff like that. It probably took them a good day to find some sort of painkiller that was going to work. Like, I was on morphine, I was on something else, I was on, they had given me Norco, they had given me Dilaudid, they were giving me pills, they were giving me IVs, you know. I think it was after that night where they finally figured out that Dilaudid was what was keeping my pain manageable. I was able to at least have relief enough to fall asleep and be able to like function and talk to them and stuff like that. But it was brutal. So yeah, and mind you, this is in 2014, so this was like maybe 6 years ago. And again, we had no idea what was going on. I didn't know. I didn't think it had anything to do with my liver or anything that had happened to me when I was 14 years old. So I had no way of telling them, like, oh, this is probably what's happening. And also, for that entire year before that, I had been gaining weight like crazy, and I didn't know why either. Like, I wasn't eating anything different. Actually, because I was a dental assistant, I was running around even more. And so I was getting more exercise, so to speak. Like, you're literally running around the office, you know. And the office was huge. Okay, this dental office isn't like a tiny little, like, oh, with like 4 little rooms. Like, we had like 30 something rooms, and then we had like everything centered in the middle, and then we basically were running around in literal circles. Okay, so a lot of running around, a lot of exercise. You know, I wasn't like eating all day long, and even when I was eating, because I was with a lot of Asians at the time, I worked with a lot of Koreans at the time. And they would bring food and they would share and stuff like that, because it's all like, you know, Asians, a lot of Asian families or a lot of Asian cultures, they're very much like family oriented. So if I bring food, like, yes, I'm going to share with everybody, kind of a deal. So we all kind of like shared food and stuff like that, because everybody would bring enough to share. So I was eating a lot healthier, because, you know, Asians, like, their foods are pretty, I mean, sometimes they can be pretty bland or not as like fatty, you know, things like that. So I wasn't eating more than anything, and I had been with that company for like 2 years. So it wasn't like I was just sitting there on my butt in my office eating all day. I was working, and I was having normal meals and stuff like that. So I couldn't figure out why within a year I had gained so much weight, you know. And it wasn't like you can see it in my face, like when you looked at me, but you didn't really see it on the scale. Like, on the scale, it's like maybe 20, 30 pounds in 1 full year, but it really showed in my face. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't look like I just gained 20 pounds. Like, 20 pounds, I'm fine with, you know, like, I gain it. But I looked huge, you know. So I was going to the doctor trying to figure out what was going on. And I'm going to assume it's because we didn't know where to look. And that's why we couldn't figure out why I was gaining weight. Like, I had switched up my birth control at the time, thinking that that was probably why I was gaining weight, because a lot of times birth control does weird things to your body. You just kind of have to play with the different birth controls to kind of figure out what works for you, right? So I thought it was birth control. We all thought it was birth control, but it wasn't, because we switched, and still I was still like gaining weight. It was insane. So we just didn't know. But once I was let go from that company, I suddenly got really sick, ended up in the hospital. I was in the hospital for that first time for maybe about 9 days, and I was on heavy painkillers. They did, again, scans, CT scans, MRIs, I mean, you name it, they did it, you know, and they finally figured out what was going on. So at the time, what they called it was acute cholangitis. So basically, I had a okay, so you have a liver, right? And it's like right here. And you have a right lobe. This is my right hand. So you have a right lobe and you have a left lobe. So in my left side, in my left lobe, if you look at your, like, let's say this is your liver, like lobe and lobe. And then, like, let's say my wrists are like the bile ducts going into like where the gallbladder is, and then the small intestines and stuff like that down here, right? So this is my left lobe. Picture one tube going like this, and then with your other side of your lobe, you have another tube going like this. So picture like a huge tube going into each side of the lobe, and in those lobes, or in that tube, you have little branches coming off. Okay, so you have a tube going in that produces the bile, with like little branches coming off producing bile as well. Now, your bile is produced to help you break down the fatty foods in your system, break down alcohol, break down food, you know, things like that. It helps in your digestion and stuff like that. So in these tubes, the bile is produced, it comes out, drains in to your small intestines, or into your, in through your gallbladder, you know, out of your liver, in through your gallbladder, into your small intestines, that start helping to start helping you digest your food. The problem with mine was that the tubes on both sides of my lobes, they were not smooth, I guess you can say. So it should be a pretty like tight and solid tube that goes into each lobe. Mine had dips in them. Like my two main ducts had dips in them. Okay, and because of this, when you have like, think of like, if you have like a bucket of water, if it's been sitting there over time, it starts to kind of fester, you know, things kind of start getting infected, things get inside, and it's just gross, right? It just starts getting infected and just like gross in there. And that what was basically happening in my liver lobe. I had one side in particular that was worse than the other side, which was my left side. They couldn't really do anything about it at the time, because I was having such a severe infection that they couldn't just go in there and like fix it, and they didn't really know how or what to do to fix it. So they sort of batted around some ideas like, okay, well, we can either try to go in there and repair it, but we don't know how to repair it. Or we can go in there and put a stent in there, meaning like a sleeve to kind of make it smooth, so the bile will kind of come, like, you know, be able to smooth out or to drain out. But there's no guarantee that it's going to work. We even need to figure out what kind of sleeve we can put in there, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But as of right now, what they told me, they were like, but as of right now, let's get the infection out of your liver and out of your body first. And I was so severely sick. I had such a bad infection that they were just like, oh my God, we need to drain it like immediately. And it wasn't like an easy drainage. Like, this is internal. This is inside my liver. So it's not like they can just be like, turn on a switch and, you know, everything's going to come out. What they ended up doing, okay, is they ended up taking me into a procedure with radiology. I think that's what the department is called. And my gastroenterologist took a tube, and I was still conscious. They did not knock me out. They didn't put me under or anything like that for this particular procedure. And let me tell you, even though they were pumping me full of painkillers the entire time, I remember the anesthesiologist. She was such a sweetheart. She was like holding my hand. I was screaming bloody murder. I just remember they had me on the table with my arms like straight out. They had both of my wrists like strapped to a board, like on both sides. And I had an IV. I don't remember what side my IV was on. I think my IV was on this side. I think it was on my right side. And I just remember holding the anesthesiologist's hand, and I was gripping her hand, crying, just completely freaking out. And she was just like, Alice, honey, hold on. And I was so scared. Oh my God, I was so scared. I was in so much pain. But my GI doctor, he basically took a tube with a bag on it, so like a drain tube, shoved it into my body, like right here, right under my boob. So like here's my boob, and it's like right here, okay? Poked it through. So I felt this. I felt like he was talking as he was doing the procedure, right? Because he was telling everybody else what he was doing and stuff like that. And I heard him, I'm past the rib bone. Like, I literally, like, everything that he said, I felt it puncture through each of my organs. So basically, he had put a drainage tube inside my body that came in here. It went into my liver and into my stomach. And I felt each piercing into each organ. It was great. But basically the idea was to have the drain tube help drain the infection out of my liver to either the bag that was on the outside of my body from the tube, or my stomach. So it'll be just like digested through my system and out of my system. And that was done in February, the last week of February, before I left the hospital. And I didn't get the drainage tube out until May. They had to wait that long because I guess my infection was that severe. I was on probably antibiotics for a good few weeks after I left the hospital. And they were just monitoring me, so making sure that the infection was draining out. If it wasn't, that they had to do something else. I basically ended up having about 3 procedures altogether, not including my actual procedure in May, to basically, once everything was drained, like once the infection was drained enough, I had my last procedure in the middle of May, where they were able to go in, see what was going on, clean out the rest of the infection, clean up whatever they could in there, and actually see what was going on. So yeah, so I was basically on my butt for that entire 2014. I didn't get released. I didn't get a doctor's release until like right before Christmas. So that was pretty brutal. That was my 2014. Again, it was, they categorized it as acute cholangitis. I remember that's what all the paperwork said. And again, that GI doctor, was also like, wow, this is a very unique situation. We have never seen anything like this. You know, people that walk in with the hookup, basically my internal hookup, because they had taken my gallbladder and stuff out. People that have my particular arrangement internally are usually over 40, over 45 years old. And it's because they have gastro problems, and that was, you know, a remedy for it. So it's pretty insane. you know, to say the least. That was 2014. And from that, I have that little scar right under my left boob. After that whole ordeal in 2014, periodically I would get pain like right in this midsection area, like where my liver and everything was, where everything happened. I also stopped getting hunger pain, so that was really weird. If I don't eat in the morning, I don't even remember, and then if I forget lunch or I suddenly get too busy and I work through lunch or whatever, I probably won't notice that I forgot to eat, because I don't get hunger pains until like maybe 2-3 o'clock. And then when it gets to be about 3-4 o'clock, I start getting issues. Like I will all of a sudden start start feeling really sick. It's like sick to my stomach sick. It's just weird. So that's when I know, like, oh shoot, I probably didn't eat lunch today. I need to go eat something real quick, or else, you know, who knows. So that's been a challenge, just trying to remember to eat, or at least put something in my stomach, you know. So I guess you could say I snack sometimes, but not really, you know, because when you're working, you're busy, you just forget, you know, you just kind of get busy, get caught up in what you're doing, and then you just don't eat, you know. Let me see, what else has it caused? Those are probably the major things that has happened since 2014 as far as that goes. So that's the second time something happened in this general region. And they did call it acute cholangitis. I did end up having a gastroenterologist, a doctor, for the next, you know, years after that, where I visited every 6 months and stuff like that. There's not a lot of research on my specific condition with like the loose tubes and everything. I'm not a candidate for like a liver transplant or anything like that, because typically people who qualify for a liver transplant, it is because their liver just doesn't function, you know, like it's killing them or going to kill them, or there's just like no way out, like they have to have a new liver. My liver still works. It's not 100% and there's some problems with it, but it still technically works. So that is why they told me that I am not a candidate for a liver transplant or anything like that. Now, that was